That's the point that I'm trying to establish this morning. And so Fermi's reactor grew in power and in efficiency as he piled those bricks closely together. But now, of course, we know that it's possible for a nuclear reactor, like what Fermi built, to go out of control and to melt down. We've even heard of accidents like that happening. Over in Russia, they had a reactor that melted down. It was called Chernobyl. Chernobyl melted down. And a lot of people had died as a result of that. A lot of ground over there was damaged to the point where they can't use it anymore. It has to be roped off. A lot of animals got sick and so on, because that reactor went out of control. There was a problem with the control system in the reactor. It got too hot. They didn't have the right controls, or the controls were inoperative. But Jesus Christ also has a control in his church that keeps it from getting too hot, from melting down, going out of control. The controls that Jesus puts in his church you find in 2 Corinthians chapter 5 and verse 14. Listen to what Paul writes here. He says, "For the love of Christ constraineth us." This word constraineth, a constraint, not a restraint like to hold you back, but a constraint, something like guardrails on a highway. Do you understand? Guardrails on a highway. You go on the highway, you can travel at your leisure on the highway. The guardrails keep you from going off of the highway and crashing into something that's going to get you hurt or killed. You see, there are constraints. And it says in the scripture in 2 Corinthians chapter 5 and verse 14, it says, "It is the love of Christ that constraineth us." It's his love in the church that moderates and it governs the hearts and minds of his people, so that coming into that close proximity doesn't create a problem. It governs the hearts and minds, the actions and the reactions of his people. Jesus said that whatsoever is done unto the least of his brethren is done to him, and he calls us brethren. Hebrews chapter 2 and verse 11 reads like this. It says, "For both he that sanctifieth and they who are sanctified are all of one, for which cause he is not ashamed to call them brethren." He who sanctifies and they who are sanctified, it says in the scripture, are one. And he refers to us as his brothers and his sisters. Whatsoever is done, it says, unto the least of Jesus' brothers or sisters, Jesus said, is done unto him. And so being brought into close proximity in the church, if the love of Christ is operative in the hearts of his people, you can come into close proximity and it subdues all of those passions that would normally cause problems. It would normally cause problems. Now look, Earth's crisis, or final crisis, is very rapidly approaching now. Very rapidly. And our enemy, Satan, is working to bring disintegration into God's church. He's trying to split us up. He's trying to divide us. He's trying to take that efficient pile of living stones and scatter them apart from each other. Because he knows that when the church comes together, there's going to be power there. Not power like the world lusts after, but power for the proclamation of the everlasting gospel and the closing warning message to the world. There'll be power attending that he won't be able to withstand. He won't be able to stop it. And he knows that will be the beginning of the end for him when that happens. So he's working to try to break us apart from each other, and we shouldn't permit him to do that. We need to watch out for that. Evil agencies are working to break down families, and our church family is under attack. According to modern social theory, might say social theory, there are lots of different kinds of families, ranging from communal families to single parent families to 3 or 4 parent families, or families where both adults are the same gender. And all of these are being called normal, acceptable, and of equal value. In the beginning, God established what some have gone on to term the nuclear family. That's a father, mother, children. This basic family unit is the foundation of all civilization And the destruction of the nuclear family is swiftly followed by the unraveling of civil society. We can see the fruit of his determined assault on the family in our newspapers, on television, and we can also see the effect of his more determined work to destroy God's church, God's family. Our enemy is working to disaffect and to isolate God's people from each other, to cause division in the family, to cultivate a spirit of apathy, like they don't care. He's trying to cultivate that, a lukewarmness of heart, so that it doesn't matter to you. Like, it doesn't matter to you if you come to church or don't come to church. He's trying to cultivate that, playing with our emotions, playing with our feelings. We can't allow him to do that. On the one hand, Christians will separate themselves from each other because everything is not done exactly as they would have it done. If it's done a slightly different way, then they're not satisfied and they don't want to be around each other. It's like they're taking, in one place I've seen it written, it says, taking liking to nothing except that which is hammered upon their own anvil. If it's not according to their own working, then they don't want to have anything to do with it, and they depart and split up. On the other hand, there are the cares and the allurements of the world that draw us away. They draw the members of Christ's body away from fellowship, and love for Jesus and love for the church grows cold. Another way our enemy fights against us is when there are wounds, either real or imagined. Wounds, either real or imagined, that they end up cherished. We hold to them. You know, it's been said that the person who extends the most forgiveness is that person is the one who himself recognizes how much he's needed to be forgiven. But there are people who, for some reason, they'll cherish grudges against each other. That person said something mean to me last week, and I'm not going to talk to them. That can't be done in the church. Those things can't be done in the Christian church. There won't be a church before long. And what's going on there is, if I can be very honest and frank with you, it's a very selfish form of justification to take a hold of wounds, either real or imagined, and to hang on to them and use them as a justification to be angry with someone or to hate someone or to treat them like they're not there. Forgiveness is the essence of what the gospel is forgiveness, and we need to practice that with each other. Because our enemy is going to come in and he's going to try to convince us not to forgive each other, to take the slights, the wounds that we might have received, and to amplify them and chew on them and keep them like a little pet. Right? If Jesus had done that, beloved, we would have no hope.